So how does all this fit together? Well, actually, I think these folks have a lot in common, and we're really pleased to be able to bring them together to do that. We were trying to do something a little bit different and try and, our thought was to try and bring together, a group of people who really kind of represented from the sectors that they work in, kind of the fabric of Louisiana. And if you think about food, the petrochemical industry, and obviously sports, I mean, that really pretty much defines Louisiana in so many ways. And then we wanted to get some folks who kind of fit certain attributes, who are really from Louisiana, Louisiana natives, who really cared a lot about the state, who were highly successful, who've traveled around the country, around the world, have seen many different perspectives, but really, really have stayed here in Louisiana and are passionate about our state. So I think we have exactly that type of a group here. And what we wanted to do is not talk with them per se just about their sectors or the industries, and we'll talk about that a little bit, but we really want to talk about some of their perspectives about Louisiana, what makes us special, our assets, some of the things that Jay talks about in his documentary and in his program, but also about, what kind of lessons learned from your travels and experiences with other folks that we can do to make Louisiana better, build on these strong assets that we have that each one of these people in their sectors represent. So with that, we're going to have a little discussion around the table, and I don't think I really need to introduce a lot of this, but I am. I think I don't need to introduce Chef John Foles. If you're from Louisiana, there is no way that you have not run across Chef John Foles, either on LPB, in person, in a cookbook, or wherever the case may be. Probably catering your event, too, somewhere. So, as you know, Chef Foles is from St. James Parish. As I mentioned, he's excelled as a chef, cookbook author, TV personality, entrepreneur, all over the map extraordinaire. Ambassador to Louisiana, for Louisiana, no question. How many of these restaurants have you opened across the world going back in the day that presented Louisiana food across the, I know it was in Moscow, I know there was one in China, other places too?
Well, we've opened in 12 countries.
12?
We did the first restaurant in the Soviet Union with the Reagan-Gorbachev summit. I was invited by the White House to go with the president to bring Louisiana food to the Soviet Union during the summit. And of course, that opened a lot of opportunity for us. After that, I also opened the first foreign restaurant in Beijing, and that was in 1989. And that helped open my food manufacturing division, which we can talk about a little bit later, but I started creating manufactured foods out of Donaldsonville to ship to some of these countries that were looking for the growth of American cuisine in those countries because of the growth of travel, et cetera, to China, to Russia, to these countries. So it grew all of our companies at the time that we were actually experiencing those restaurants and opening those restaurants that had never seen American cuisine.
Oh, that's amazing. And I know one other thing that really stands out, I know for you, is that the Chef John Foles Institute, Culinary Institute at Nichols, I think was the very first program of its kind to offer a 4-year degree in culinary arts, I guess is what
we're the only Bachelor of Science in culinary arts in the world. So if you're going to have a 4-year college degree in culinary, which is opening globally for us now because students from France, from other countries are coming to Louisiana, to get that 4-year degree. And I really pay tribute to the Board of Regents because most of the restaurant failures are not because of the cooks, but because of the business acumen. So to be able to open a 4-year degree that spent 50% of the students' time in business really made the difference of what's happening in culinary today. So I'm very proud of that Culinary Institute at Nichols State.
Absolutely. Moving on, Roman Hardy, thank you for being here as a native of Lake Charles. I was reading through your bio. In 1988, before even finishing college, he went to work for Shell, but he finished 3 years later at LSU and got a degree in electrical engineering, if that's correct. And really that was the spark that really took him totally up the corporate ladder at Shell for a number of years. I don't know how many years you worked at Shell, and I know you just retired, but how many years?
Yeah, it was 34 years in April.
from Lake Charles to really leading operations, you know, at Shell at the worldwide global level. I know you were overseas for a number of years working on facilities not only in North America but in Asia and Europe. A huge portfolio towards the end of your period there at Shell with entire, you know, Gulf Coast, which is really, I guess, part of the huge part of the portfolio of Shell, overseeing many of their operations there. So thanks, Roman, so much for being with us. And you may have noticed the guy on the end is not Tim Brando. He's the name that was in the things that we sent out. But lo and behold, while we were dealing with the weather today, Tim really has been sick for the last several days. I mean, really under the weather. We talked to him just on Monday, I guess, and he's lost like 12 pounds. And so he was unable to travel. But, you know, pulling rabbits out of the hat is what we all try and do. And thankfully, we were able to get Scott Woodward to come. And I don't need to introduce him either, LSU athletic director. You all know pretty much about Scott's career. I met Scott when he was working in the Romer administration. I guess that was in the late 80s, something like that. Policy and legislative guy back then. We also were neighbors there for a period of time while he was at LSU. As you know, he went to work later at LSU, a lot of administrative work there with Chancellor Emmert. He was really a close advisor to Chancellor Emmert for many years at that position. Went on to Washington, where he became also a Chief External Affairs, or one of those vice president titles that they have in higher ed. There's like 1 million of them that they have. But then he also went from there to becoming an athletic director and really brought a lot of success to the University of Washington. Went on to another school that we are not going to name for Tiger fans who are here. But fortunately ended up in 2019 here back in Baton Rouge and LSU. And Scott, thanks so much for being here. We really do appreciate you coming and joining us. So we're going to really get started with talking a little bit about things. We wanted to start just briefly. If you could, tell us just a little bit about your early background and where you're from, but how it also kind of got you on the path that you're on. I know they're different divergent paths, but how did, you know, being here in Louisiana, starting out here, wherever you were from, you know, get you to the career path that you were on? And Chef Foles, we'll just start with you.
Okay, well, I grew up in St. James Parish, as I mentioned. I was born in 1946, and my mother died in her 10th child, died with giving birth to her 10th child in 1955, and left 9 children behind. My dad never remarried. He was with St. James Sugar Cooperative with the Grunyard family for so many years. And it was an African-American woman by the name of Mary Fascio who I attribute all of my success to. I really get emotional even talking about Mary Fascio because she knocked on our door about 2 weeks after we buried my mother in '55. And she knocked on the door and my dad answered and said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "No, but I can help you." And he said, "Help me do what?" And she said, "Help you raise these 9 or 10 children you have here." And she told a story about meeting my mother hanging clothes on a clothesline in a rainstorm, my mom being 9 months pregnant at the time, and she saw my mom hanging these clothes, and she came in to the gate of our little Cajun home and sat my mother down, hung the clothes, and it was 2 weeks later my mother died in childbirth. And it was this African-American lady who came and knocked on the door a couple of weeks later and told my dad, "I'm here to help." And she was with us for 23 years. Reared us as her own, taught me everything I know about cooking and about life. And I attribute all of my success to the hands of this African-American woman who was a saint sent to our back door. So that's my early beginnings, and that's really the roots I stand firmly on. So to bring my culture and my cuisine around the world from that very humble beginning in the swamps of Louisiana is something I'm very proud to tell my students at Nicholls State University, that anything in the world can happen to you. All you have to do is every day get up with a good attitude and move forward.
Roman, what about you? How did your early years in Lake Charles get you on a pathway to really the top of the corporate ladder in many ways at Shell and a huge career in that?
Yeah, thank you. Kind of before I answer, I got to think Patrick asked me to do this. I don't know if I was really thinking, because, you know, you have now Scott Woodward and Shel Foltz and an engineer, right? So no telling how the hell this is going to go. But yeah, I'm originally from North Lake Charles, and I guess as a kid, I was super, super shy, but always loved math and science. I mean, that was sort of my comfort zone, was sort of to do academics. And so I joke with my sons now, I have two boys, and because they're trying to figure out what they want in life. Yeah, I never really thought about all that. I was like, okay, what's the highest paying undergrad? Like, and somebody said engineering, and I said, well, that's what I want to go do. And so I, you know, came to LSU and majored in that, and I think it was just such a big part of me growing as a person, and I think creating the foundation to be able to go work in different places around the world. I mean, North Lake Charles is not a very diverse place, and then you come to LSU and have to learn how to work with people from different backgrounds and cope. And so, as you might imagine, it starts really shaping your mind about how people are just people, and showing up in Asia or in Europe or going through Moscow, which I didn't enjoy that part. But the ability to then communicate and work with people from different backgrounds, I think, was fostered at those moments. So, yeah, so I started a career in engineering, and I never would have told you at that point that I would move mostly from engineering into leadership. So only 7 years in engineering, the rest of the time was leading teams of increasing responsibility. So I think God intervened in 2015. Shel moved me back to Louisiana after 25 years. Didn't know I would ever come back here other than come back and visit my parents in Lake Charles. And we moved here initially to lead the Shell Geismar plant, which is right south of Baton Rouge, and then by the end I was leading the Gulf Coast of for Shell, which is Texas, Alabama, and Louisiana, and for a number of reasons decided to retire in the end of April. So.
Well, great. And Scott, I'm just guessing here, but I'm thinking when you were growing up here in Baton Rouge, and even at, you know, what, Baton Rouge High or Catholic High, that's, I knew that, Catholic High. I'm just guessing that you didn't think that you were going to end up as athletic director at LSU, but maybe that was part of the career path to begin with. So tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely not. It's just always be prepared, I guess, is for what life hands to you. But, you know, like these gentlemen here, you always have people whose shoulders you stand on. And you know, Chef Foltz mentioned a matriarch in his world. And, you know, I was lucky that my great-grandfather, you know, was family for generations was chasing timber mills in western Louisiana, and he had the sense to go to college and become a teacher, and was the first principal at Central High School here in East Baton Rouge Parish. And, you know, he was my ticket, I guess, to being out of the woods, and I thank him for it. But secondarily is LSU. LSU was transformative for me, Barry, and Calicut gave me a good foundation. I saw Father Cleo here. My grade school at Our Lady of Mercy did, but really LSU was transformative for me and opened my world, like Roman said, to things that you never see, especially for me as a kid in South Baton Rouge, just like he was in North Lake Charles, to the world and what it offers. And so I was always ready. And, you know, everyone always asks this question, Barry, and I'm going to answer it before you do. Is that how in the heck did you get into athletics, being in policy, government, and politics and all that? And you know, Mark Emmert, God bless him, when I came to work at LSU, he says, look, he goes, two things can get a president/chancellor leader in trouble in academic administration. He goes, scandal and athletics. He goes, I can promise you a scandal's not going to happen. You're paying attention to athletics. And so that was how I kind of got dragooned into doing the athletic thing, and here I am.
One thing leads to another, for sure. I want to ask, before we get into some general things too, I want to ask you something, each of you, a little something specific to kind of your sectors and areas, since we're talking about it. And I want to start again with Chef Foltz. I mean, we are very well known in Louisiana for our food, our cuisine, our culture. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, Louisiana is very well branded, I think, nationally, probably internationally as well, in many ways, in terms of that as kind of a brand. And I guess the question is, it certainly serves us well in terms of tourism and just kind of the overall sense that people have of the state. But do you think there's some ways that as we look forward to the future, we can leverage that reputation we have for the food, the culture, all of those things, into some things that can actually drive our state into maybe higher levels of achievement, higher levels of improvement beyond just tourism? I mean, to try and lift our brand, to make us, seen as a place really where people want to come and live and stay and really contribute.
Well, that's certainly a great thought, and yeah, I think generally speaking, Louisiana has a really tremendous reputation out there. I mean, I'm in it every single day. Food, of course, is paramount to anything Louisiana. Music, hospitality. I mean, we can just keep on going on. The tourism industry in Louisiana continues to blossom. The movie industry continues to blossom. I mean, I see so much positive about everything happening in our state. We mentioned Nicholls State a little while ago. When I look at at my students who are graduating from Nicholls, I was telling somebody at the table today, Sonesta, where I have my restaurant in New Orleans, the president of Sonesta has agreed to hire all of my top students to put in Sonesta restaurants all over the country because of the pride and the excitement about everything happening in the state of Louisiana. Louisiana has such a great reputation, food-wise, hospitality-wise, across the country. So I don't know if I kind of got off on that subject, but I really think there's nothing that's more exciting to me than anything I can do to bring the thoughts of anything Louisiana to the world. I mean, that's what we do best, and I think that's what people are really excited about, to come here and experience what we're doing here.
Well, I think you're right. Roman, let me ask you about your sector, the area that you're in, petrochemical. I mean, right now in Louisiana, it's not just us, the energy sector, petrochemical, that entire sector is really in the process of going through some major change. I mean, in many ways, our industry here has been here for, basically a century, but we know that we are in the midst of some kind of a change that's going on. It's driven by all the forces that we know about. I guess the question I want to know is, I know Texas and other states are trying to position themselves so that they make that transition and do it well. What is the key for Louisiana, who's really been, like Texas, at the core of so much in our energy, petrochemical, that entire sector? What do we need to be doing? The industries are going to do a lot themselves, but as a state, for policy, for whatever, to try and make sure we are positioned not to get left behind when this transition occurs.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I dedicated much of the last 3 years before I left Shell to helping them figure out sort of what's next in the U.S., and most of that was what's next in the U.S. Gulf Coast. I think you heard a lot of people speak and say this, but I'll repeat is, there's no better place to invest for clean energy, for chemicals growth, than in Louisiana. And if it's something I would want you to leave with, and it's one of the things that I hope people quit doing, is they use that as a comparison against traditional oil and gas. They're both going to thrive here. It will be volatile, it's going to change, but Louisiana has the best deep water position, the best natural gas advantage. That's not going to go away. People on the wrong end of that competitive scale will struggle, but that's not necessarily Louisiana. So I think thinking of both the new sources of energy, the low carbon fuels as an and instead of a competition is the key from a policy standpoint. That won't be true everywhere, but it is uniquely true in Louisiana. And Louisiana is so advantaged with the things that you know about with the natural gas position in the river, but with the geology to allow carbon capture and storage to work for those who choose to invest in it. And with the now merging of agriculture into the energy sector, the ability both to grow here and also the river to clear the Midwest through this place, it's just fundamentally advantaged. And I think if we learn to think about it that way and not put policy that has us choosing, we're likely to thrive. I also think we have a workforce that's unbelievable. I'm worried about the number of people available to work, but the people that do work in this industry stand out for their ability to deliver. So I think the future is bright. I think that we can make it even more bright by embracing that. And if there's something that I don't know we did sort of the first go-round, whatever that means, when deep water's been explored, is I think we become the knowledge center this go-around, where instead of other places are the experts in deep water, though we do the deep water here, that should be here in Louisiana. I think leveraging both the university systems and the community college systems to be part of this change will be key to Louisiana continuing to thrive and grow.
Yeah, let me ask you one just quick follow-up to that, too. Next year's an election year, and we always try and send messages to people who are running for office. Is that a message that we need to send to the people who run for the legislature and governor, that this is a very critical time, and our state needs to be a player in this? Certainly industry will be, but we need the state, the governmental partnership as well?
I think that, absolutely. I joked, someone asked me before, do you think we're likely to mess it up with policy? And I answered this 6 months ago, and I probably wasn't thinking well enough. So what I said was, I think the ball's already rolling. I mean, if you're in the chemicals business, and this is not because of regulation, it is hard to sell a position in the future that's not lower carbon. And these are because they have decided that's what their customers want. If you're going to export to other parts of the world, it's hard to sell that. So in my mind, I said, look, despite all people trying to figure it out, you have to have someone to sell to, and if you're going to sell to somebody who's exporting, it's going to be that. Sometimes policymakers are more talented than what I think about it, coming up with ways to get in the way. So, yes, I would love to see this state embrace an and philosophy, because companies are having to make these decisions, and this is one of the most uncertain times. It's not so clear that this investment is going to be here for 20 years. You're going to have to be flexible and be able to move quickly. And knowing that you're in a place that wants you there and has great policy, I think will make it easier to support these other fundamentals that I mentioned earlier.
Scott, let me ask you this question. One of the things Jay has in his presentation is that Louisiana, for its size, has a disproportionate impact on the rest of the country in a lot of areas. And one of the areas that he points to is sports. And one of the areas he talks about is all the athletes from across the board, from across the state, who have gone on to fame and everything else, greatness, who come from Louisiana more so than not more so than you see in other states, but disproportionately larger. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, do you kind of share that? And I guess the other question is there some way that we can better use that ability to kind of create these sports heroes and all that, to leverage things, more for the betterment of our state in a broader way?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of my key, I would say, pet peeves and moments of excitement when I tell people we're our own worst enemies when it comes to beating ourselves up about who we are. And it took me 15 years away to say and how special we are and how special people think we are. I had to go to Seattle to say, man, what we did's pretty good here and how we do it. And back to athletics, and your question is, I don't buy into the Darwinian stuff that we just have better athletes and, because that's the way it is. We have better athletes because they've been raised the right way and done it the right way. They've been driven, they've been determined, they've been organized, they've been, done everything that they've had to do. And that's what I say about our student athletes. They're the best employees to hire for all of you out there hiring, because they live in such a structured, tight, time-managed world, and these kids, they can be coached harder, they're going to give a lot more, they're proud, and that's what makes the difference, and that's why we're so special. And if we do that in every aspect of what we do, whether it's in the petrochemical industry at Shell or at John Folse's empire, where I could be killed by death by gumbo every day. but it's part of, if we decide we want to do it, and don't make an excuse that, hey, we're not this smart, or we're too poor, or we all that. I'm tired of hearing that. I really am, as a Louisianian. And I want to tell you, yeah, do we have a lower sector of our socioeconomic world that is poor? Damn right we do, and we got to address it. But our high-end people and what and how we do it, there's no question we can be the best in whatever we decide to do. And it took me going away to Texas and Washington State to actually have that epiphany, and I see it every day of my life, Barry.
Well, just to follow up on that, you've traveled a lot, obviously. You've worked in other states, and all of y'all have traveled a lot. What what do you take away with the impressions people have of Louisiana? I mean, you've been in places for a long time. I know we get the thing, I mean, everybody does, y'all really still have alligators in your yard and all of that stuff, but really, what do you sense people think of Louisiana? What is top of mind to them? And again, is that something, you know, I mean, and actually on both the positive and negative. I mean, I know where I go, we get a lot of very positive stuff, but people will say, oh yeah, well, you know, y'all have a lot of other issues to deal with too. What is your sense of what people think about Louisiana?
Yeah, I think the eccentricity is an advantage.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to get to know you.
Yeah.
They want to be around you. I was accepted in Seattle because of that, and I was insecure about it. I'm just a lowly little kid from Louisiana who went to LSU. I didn't go to some Ivy League school or to some, you know, top AAU public institution in America. Hell no, man. They want to know how you did it and what you do and how you get there. And I was like, damn, that's pretty good. You know, I felt pretty good about myself, you know, and that is what you see, and you see it every day, Barry, and I can give anecdotal evidence. I mean, on my way over here, I talked to, as a lot of people know, Jimbo Rowland at Window World. His son-in-law is working in the White House.
Oh, wow.
You know, we have people, talented people, all over the place, and they're everywhere, and everything we do, it's just, hey, let's accept it, and let's be proud of it, and let's use it to our advantage.
Yeah, Roman, same kind of question. What's your experience been in your travels?
Yeah, I would say I'll probably describe two different realities. So one is in the U.S. and one is outside the U.S. I would say the pro is definitely the point that Scott touched on, is the Louisiana people that have left are stand out in the ability to solve problems. I mean, you can think about the difference between having these complex issues that someone can intellectually talk to you about all day, but when it's time to actually make a decision and do something, they struggle. You see Louisiana people able to be part of solutions, and that's noticed. And wanting to recruit from here, if people are willing to move, is a core thing that people see, and it stands out. New Orleans stands out. It's funny coming back home because people here don't always describe New Orleans in a positive light. And I know there's a lot of challenges. If you're away from here, New Orleans is it. Right, this is what people talk about. So we need to cherish that like it is a driver for the state, because it is, and help solve some issues there. Globally, what's interesting is that there is no negative view of Louisiana. They know about New Orleans, they know about the food, they know about the deep water production, and it's sort of, we need to tell our story better so they get to know more about us than just those ability to produce, because there's more to give there, but it's not, you know, especially spending a lot of time in Europe working for a European company, there's actually a bit more negative view of Texas, not as a business, but as, you know, these people really are kind of arrogant. They think they know everything. Well, Louisiana people tend to come across a lot more humble. So there's a lot of people who are willing to invest here, but they also got to have to know that the state really wants them here and wants them to be here.
Chef Foltz, what about you in terms of what feel like people's perceptions of Louisiana are, and from all of your travels?
Well, I think it's evident that people love being in Louisiana. There's no doubt about it. I mean, just the joie de vivre, the joy of life here, the exceptional personalities that they run into. I mean, I'm in New Orleans, and it's amazing just walking out of my restaurant at Revolution, and you can just stand there for a minute and a gathering will come around you. If I have a chef jacket on, a gathering of 50 people will stand around. Who are you? Where are you cooking? Where's the best place to eat? And all of a sudden, people, you have no idea who they are, where they're from, and all of a sudden now they're in your world and you're sharing all of this information with them. I just think, we've all been saying it, but Louisiana is just that special place that stands out across the world as a very, very special place to be. Everybody the minute they find out that if I'm traveling on a plane, wherever I am, I'm from Louisiana, all of a sudden it's a big conversation. It's about the food. It's about the music. It's about New Orleans. It's about the swamplands of Louisiana. It's about chewdom in the swamps, you know. I tell you what, I could not be happier as an individual to be representing Louisiana and to be to be out there in the public every single day. I'm proud of the fact that I'm from here, and I'm proud of the fact that that people are so excited about wanting to know more about us. And I want to say one other thing about Nichols State as well, because Nichols, when they made that decision to build a 4-year college degree to bring students from all over the world to Louisiana, to Thibodaux, Louisiana, to study the cooking of Louisiana, to go back to their countries and to go back to their states. This is an example of this accordion effect of Louisiana. They experience all of the uniqueness of our state. They're excited about being here, and they're going to be coming back year after year to come and experience the great things that Louisiana has to offer. I couldn't be more excited about not only being a representative of the state, but at the same time being able to showcase Louisiana, whether it's through PBS or through our restaurants or through our manufacturing companies. Just a great place to say that I'm a Louisianian, you know.
Let me kind of flip that question over a little bit again, kind of based on your travels and where you've experienced in other places. Anything you can take away from some of these other states or other countries or wherever that you've been that Louisiana would benefit from? I mean, we have a lot of assets, we have a lot of great things. Have you seen anything that you would point to that maybe, hey, we can learn some lessons from somewhere else? And, you know, it depends. Maybe it's the roads, which is probably a big one for a lot of people. But just off the top of your head, anything from those experiences that we could take away from some of the other places you've been?
I don't know if I have a particular point, but I think all of us have great experiences no matter where we go. We're going to bring something back to Louisiana that we see that we think is better than what we're doing. But at the same time, we're unique here. We're excited about what we do. We're excited about sharing more about Louisiana than we give a damn about what they think about us. You know what I mean? No, that's the way I feel.
Yeah, Roman.
Yeah, because I don't want to make this all so rosy. So there's probably a couple of things I would say. So one is. People ask me, what's been different coming back, particularly living in Houston, is looking backwards feels more right to the population than embracing going forward. And this blend of holding on to nostalgia when you need to be embracing change, if you want to thrive, is slower here. Fundamentally slower. Everybody talks about nobody likes change, but it's like a different level of not liking change. And so if you believe the world's moving around you and it matters to us because we're going to compete in the energy industry and serve a populace that's big in Louisiana, you got to kind of want something to be different. And I think we are really, really slow with that. And I think that permeates a lot of different decisions that we make, where we're really arguing about, you know, how things used to be. Well, that's great, but, you know, that has nothing to do, in some cases, with what we're going to do today. And I think finding that balance better is gonna really be key. I think, and it's a mix of between whether this is reality or the stories we tell ourselves. So Louisiana is a very heavy relationship state, and that makes us unique in a positive way. It creates a view business-wise that deals are done with who you know versus doing the best deals. And compared to Texas, which is sort of viewed as right is right, wrong is wrong, that's not always a view of how business is done in Louisiana. I think we have to keep looking to just purge that and kill that view that you have to know someone in order for X, Y, Z. Well, it should just be a good business transaction. So that would be the things I would say.
Scott, any
I have
thoughts?
very little to add. Roman, that's a mic drop, man. You nailed it. The only thing I would add, just from a governmental standpoint, and I look at my good friend Jay Darden here and talk about kind of what we did in the early 2000s with specific investment to get a return on investment, because I get it, resources are limited, but we really need to focus on what really can make fundamental change in a hurry. And you know, these guys talked about it, whether at Nichols or whether at Roman's experience at LSU or in Texas. if we continue to invest in you know, our higher education, and I'm making a shameless pitch for LSU, you get an enormous ROI. I mean, enormous. And what you can do for so little, Barry, is incredible. And Jay was part of that when we did that with Governor Foster, and we really soared in the early 2000s at LSU, and we're still reaping the benefits from it. But, you know, that's the only thing, that and roads, that my other places, and that, you mentioned it, Barry, that we can do better and we can figure out a way to do it, whether it's roads or transportation or infrastructure. Those are my two hot points, you know, higher education and that's where my suggestion would be for investment.
Well, you kind of answered this next question that I had just then, but you may be able to make a variation on there, because there's a lot of things you could say to the next governor if you were able to sit down with that person right now. But I guess my question was, if you could sit down after we have our elections with the next governor, whoever that might be, and give them one piece of advice about making our state better. Now, there's a lot of things we could pick on, but what would you tell them? Or what would you ask the new governor to do?
Yeah, that, you know, where it's not us coming up at CABL or PAR with a master plan to spend a lot of money and transform things, which is going to be very hard to do. But if you make specific targeted investments in higher education, you can have huge impact. And those are realities in what we can do and how we can do it. Secondly is, I do think there needs to be a serious discussion of infrastructure. Whether it's the rivers, the highways, the grid, the technical Wi-Fi infrastructure, everything we do. And I think we need to seriously invest and consider ways to do and figure out new ways to generate revenue, to focus on that and invest on that. That's one man's opinion. No, very good points. Roman, what?
Yeah, so I said the sort of and piece around energy investment. Probably so what worries me most about what I think is a wave of investment coming to Louisiana, what are the major risks? I'm really worried we won't have enough people to do the work. And I know you kind of hear that all the time. I think it's worse now than ever. I think a lot of people left the workforce during COVID. The demographics don't support enough people coming in fast enough, so finding ways to get people ready to do the work is going to be key. And I think while it's higher ed, most of the jobs are actually going to be certificate program jobs where people are operators or crafts or digital jobs. And so and I'm biased, I'm on the board of the community college system, so I got to say that. But the ability to more quickly get kids able to go to work in the workforce is going to be key, or a lot of that money that'll be available to be spent, you won't have the people to spend. So I think embracing ideas that speed that up will be key. And I think the other thing is, from an industry standpoint, one of the other biggest risks is that parts of our population don't see the benefit of investment in the industry. And you see that play out in the news in a lot of different ways. I think maturing sort of the relationship with those parts of parishes who don't get the benefit of a multi-billion-dollar investment because their population is not working in the facilities, or they don't see the tax money show up in their neighborhoods, that model will, I think, fail. And I think you see a lot of big companies already struggling with very large investments because NGOs will find people who are unhappy and give them the means to voice their opinion. And it doesn't mean it's factually correct that industry is causing the issues, but I think the approach of just giving data to explain why we're great to a population that's actually not seeing any benefits is not going to push us to the place we need to be. So I think evolving that approach is going to be a big part of being successful.
Chef Foltz, you spend a lot of time with governors, or have spent a lot of time with governors over the years. I don't know how many of them that you count on your list, but when you're by yourself or in small company with governors, anything that you tell them that's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I ask them for their best gumbo recipe. That's number one. Well, I've been blessed to sit with so many of them over the years, and the uniqueness of each one of them was incredible. Just thinking back to the early days of Edwards, and watching him, just his flamboyance, and we actually learned a lot about exciting the public from watching Edward's work. So I enjoyed being around him. He loved people, and it kind of enforced the way we should address folks. Treen comes along, and and I've been very fortunate being in the position I am as a chef and a cook, and being involved in all of these administrations, and every one of them unique personalities. Great to sit around a table and just listen to them talk and listen to what the challenges are in Louisiana and how I might be able to in some way affect it. So I think, like many of you sitting in here, we've had an opportunity to sit at the table of some of the giants in politics and some of the most influential people, talking about governors in particular. But I've certainly taken great advantage of sitting at the table with the leaders of our state. Our lieutenant governor sitting over here, who we spent so much time together, Jay Darden, and just to run ideas and thoughts and get the feedback on from really helped us grow our companies and gave us direction in what we should be thinking about. And so I think just being involved as a chef in Louisiana, being in a position to be able to rub shoulders with the people in this room right now has really made me a much, much better businessman, a much better personality, a much better talent to be able to bring everything good about Louisiana to the world. So, yeah.
I may be wrong in this, but I'm just guessing they've asked more of you than you have asked of them.
Well, I think it's pretty symbiotic. I was in a pretty good position because everybody likes to eat. There's nobody in this room who doesn't like a good. And then, of course, being able to bring Louisiana cooking around the world and then sit at the tables of the people that really made things happen in Louisiana was a great position for us to be in as well. We represented the state well, and the state really took good care of us. So, yeah, very.
Great. We've got one more question, then we're going to wrap it up and let y'all get going. But I'm going to start with Scott on this one. We're in a period of change, and I guess, we're always in a period of change, but it just feels like right now, with climate change, with the weather change, the things that we talk about there, change in the energy sector, all of those things that are happening, we have changes in our demographics in the state. So it feels like we're kind of on the cusp of a lot of change in some big ways that are coming to the state, and really to the country, the world, not just the state. But I guess my question is, given all of this, being on the verge of change or on the cusp of all this change, if you were to use your crystal ball and try and predict, whatever number of years, 20, 30 years ahead into the future, knowing that we all need to change and be part of this change, where do you see Louisiana? Are we going to be up to the challenge? Are we going to, be able to make those transitions that we need to and end up being a leader, and maybe even more of a leader than we are right now? Or I'm just wondering, where do you see us in your crystal ball 30 years from now, 20 years from now?
Yeah, great question, and I've thought a lot about it. And I don't want to sound Pollyannish, but I think we're in a tremendous position to really benefit in a big way going forward in everything we do, whether it's in John Folse's hospitality world or Roman's petrochemical world that he lived in most of his life, or athletics and what and how we do it. Change is the greatest thing in the world. I love. The only thing constant is change, and I think we will answer to it. And I don't have anything concrete to tell you, Barry, except, boy, I'm excited about it. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm glad to be back home, because there's so much to do and what and how we do it. And sure, we have our challenges, we like everyone else, but they're not insurmountable, and they're bright. And Roman touched on it with the lack of employable people. We need immigration, and this people need to come to this state and continue to make it the great melting pot that it's been and made us so great. And if we continue to do that, like someone once said in the great political war, Barry, we don't need more taxes, we need more taxpayers.
Yes.
And so if we do that and continue to tell the world, hey, this is a great place to be, I think it's unlimited.
Yeah, Roman?
Much more I could add to it. I do think because the fundamentals are so strong that the production of from refined products to chemicals will grow in Louisiana and create a stronger base. I just have a hard time believing that won't happen, and hopefully we're also the knowledge center. I do think in 20, 30 years, most of us will be driving electric vehicles. And let me tell you why. It's not actually a climate change standpoint. I think when you think about these things from a customer back, and I know a lot of people work in the industry, so you're going to have a slightly different angle to this, but most people don't get up and say, hey, I look forward to going to the gas station today. They just want to drive their car and get to where they want to get. When people realize I can avoid that most of the time, if I'm a homeowner, I have an easy place to charge, and all the R&D is going electric, people are going to choose it for non-environmental reasons, mostly limited by supply chain than by demand. And so when I hear people give me all these things around why they're not going to drive electric, I'm like, yeah, keep waiting. You know, the F-150 is going to be electric next year, and it's going to be faster than yours, and you're going to realize there's no R&D going to the old F-150, so your car is going to look old. And so it's only a matter of time, and it's okay. It's okay. There's more plastics going in the electric vehicle than was going in the traditional one. And you can make it here, all right? So quit freaking out on EVs. It's a good thing. It's fine. I'm an electrical engineer, I know, but it's still good.
That's, and Chef Foss, to end with you, what does your crystal ball say about Louisiana in 20 or 30 years or whatever?
Well, I think as in the past 20 or 30 years, Louisiana is an exciting state. It's an exciting place to visit. I've never met anyone anywhere in the world that didn't know it. The minute I said I'm from Louisiana, it wasn't about the accent. It was about the fact that they knew the joie de vivre, they knew the joy of living, they knew the food, they knew the music, they knew the Mardi Gras. Louisiana is a special place. There's just no doubt about it. I mean, we've all traveled the globe. When I think of the 8 or 9 countries that I've opened restaurants in, I've never come home and said I wanted to live there. I always wanted to come home to Louisiana because there's no place like it. And it's not only about the food, it's about the people, it's about the faith, it's about just the joy of living in this wonderful place, but more so than anything else, it's the people. It's you sitting out there, and it's amazing to walk out onto the streets, whether I'm in a chef's jacket or just an old floppy coat that somebody just yells across there, hey, chef, I got a recipe I want to talk to you about. That's what Louisiana's all about, the sharing of every single thing that we're excited about. We want somebody to know about it, and we want to share it with the world. So I'm just here to keep on keeping on. So, and I appreciate the invitation to be here today. Thank y'all.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks to this great panel, Chef Foss, Roman Hardy, Scott Woodward. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank all of you for coming and braving the weather, and please be safe on the way back home, and happy holidays to all of you, and thanks again.